whenever I feel like I can do it all by myself, that's when I get severely humbled in this world.
So I want to start before I ask the first question, can you give a brief elevator pitch, 1 to 2 sentences about who you are and what you do?
Heck yeah. Yo, what's up, guys? My name's Zach Cornell. I am 28 years old now, so I'm very old. But I was on this most recent season of Big Brother season 27. It was an incredible experience. I currently now, after the show, I play for this brand new show baseball league called Boomball, and we're about to start our tour, and we're about to go entertain a ton of kids, 6 to 12 year olds. So I'm very excited about that. And yeah, that's who I am as a person.
Nice. So starting out with, tell me about your religious upbringing. Did you always know Jesus? Did you grow up in the church?
Yeah, I mean, I am a pastor's kid. So we talk about growing up in the church, that has always been my foundation. I will say this, I knew the stories, I went to church every single Sunday, but when it came to me actually getting to know Christ, like my relationship with Jesus, that really didn't come about until I got into college, if I'm being quite honest with you. I was very sheltered growing up. I went to a private Christian school. I did all the due diligence things, but when my faith was put to the test, it really came when I first started in college. So
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people relate to that. Our audience is high school to college age students, and that's kind of a pivotal time. So,
yeah,
shifting to more Big Brother, what inspired you to go on the show?
I have always been a person that says yes to every opportunity. And what I mean by that is, I had the opportunity to go play professional baseball with the Washington Nationals organization earlier. And after that, I had a bunch of different opportunities for different reality TV shows, to where it's like I kept saying yes and I got to the final audition. The Bachelorette was another one that I was supposed to be on. I got to the very end, they postponed it. That's when Big Brother reached out, right? And so I have always been a Survivor geek. Like, I love Survivor. And so I hadn't really, Big Brother was something that I knew of, but I wasn't like a complete fan of. And so when I got the opportunity, I was like, let's just full send it and see where life takes us. And so I feel like that's what God has kind of called me to do with my life, is always just push yourself to you're slightly uncomfortable, and just let him lead the way, right? So that was ultimately the reason why I ended up doing Big Brother.
Nice. So in the house, what was kind of like the biggest lesson that you learned during your time in the house?
I would say, like, my biggest lesson in the Big Brother house would be, first off, to really appreciate your time with everybody, because there are people that I really grew close with that were there for a week and then they were no longer there, right? And it kinda just hits you, in terms of your relationship with them, but you also realize in the house that, when you're there with people 24 hours a day, every single day, it really elevates your relationships with them, right? It was one of those things. I was sitting in the house and I would know somebody for a month, but it felt like I knew them for an entire year, right? And so you get to really know people when you're in that house. You understand where they're from, their entire family, their like what drives them to be who they are as a person, right? And what's really cool about Big Brother is that it puts you in an environment with 16 other people that they are drastically different people. The people they cast, it's not like the same person. It's totally different personalities. They have totally different backgrounds. And so learning to mesh with those people is what's really cool about the show. And that's what I learned is, like, I live in near Atlanta, Georgia, right? So you see the same type of people day to day. But when you get exposed to that type of environment, you realize there are some really cool people out there that have different backgrounds, that have things that really push them as a person. And that's what I really learned from the Big Brother house, is like, you just got a whole world out there. You just have to go explore and meet these different people.
So, were there any moments you talk about like being exposed to new people? Were there any moments in the house that kind of tested your faith?
Yes, I mean, it's one of those things where, you do have people with a lot of different backgrounds where maybe they didn't have the best experience in church, right? And so, like, they're questioning me as the pastor's kid, saying, "Zach, like, what is your belief in this? Like, why do you think the way that you think?" Right? And those are the questions that, I feel like you really grow closer with somebody when you get to that point in conversation. and B, you it really kind of exposes you, right? Like, what do you truly believe? And so I think those moments, I had multiple conversations where it's like, for example, I was with Rachel Riley in a punishment in a cage for like over 12 hours overnight, right? And so you learn to talk about everything under the sun, right? And so I think in those moments, what you have to do, you have to put yourself in a perspective of they're curious and you have to understand their side as well and just give your thoughts, and either A, they're going to accept what you believe, or B, they're not. And so I think that's what I really learned in the Big Brother house when it comes to my faith specifically, is that people with their backgrounds, like, they've had different experiences in church, right? But I think what's the biggest point of what really pushes people forward in their faith is when you do have that one conversation with Christ, right? It doesn't have to be like you have to be in church every single week. It's more along the lines of, are you thinking about Jesus in your daily life? Are you thinking about, you putting him first in everything that you do, right? And so that's the type of thought process and mentality that I personally have. And when it comes into the Big Brother house, yeah, people did question what I believe in, but it's like sticking true to what put me in the position where I'm at today. And it's that thought process with my relationship with Christ.
Yeah, so can what was speaking more on that, what was your relationship with God like and your faith on the show? Like, for example, did your faith help you remain grounded at all?
Look, I mean, you're in a house with 16 people 24 hours a day. So you have no privacy, right? Cameras following you everywhere in every single room. There's live feeds. People are watching you at all times. And there were moments where I'm sitting there and, I needed a moment to myself. So I would try and go into a different room, but there would be somebody in every single room. And that kind of overwhelms you a bit. Right. And so I will give a shout out to one of my friends on the show, Keanu. Like, what he did and what I started doing as well is that he would take the Bible, and one every single day he'd read in Psalms. He'd read one chapter in Psalms and just like harp on it and just really focus on that chapter. And I feel like when you do that, when you take time and you really focus on the Lord for just a little bit, it helps you just stay grounded, especially in that high intensity, high pressure environment. You have to find a way to stay grounded. And that's what I started doing. And it really helped me out a lot. So I got that idea from Keanu from the show. And so shout out Keanu. But that's really where you feel very vulnerable as a person because you can't find any alone time. So you have to somehow find a way to get that personal privacy and read the word. So yeah.
Shifting more into baseball, you mentioned that you played for the Nationals and now play for a boomball league, which is really fun. Um, so was playing professionally always a dream of yours? What was the moment you kind of realized it could go from being a hobby to a professional gig?
Yeah, I mean, when I first started in college, I was a freshman that hit 220, which is not good in baseball. And I was somebody that got benched for a senior. And I told myself that summer that I was going to give it 100%. It was all I was going to focus on. And if God allows me to continue playing, then I will continue playing. But I was like, it's not going to be from the short effort of my own doing. And so I really pushed myself that summer to the point of I found a lot of success from then on out. And it was one of those things where I went to a small college and I knew that I wasn't getting that many looks. So I had a conversation with the Lord, and I was just saying, it's in your will. That's great. If not, then you lead me into the next chapter of my life, right? And so I was very fortunate, though. My senior year, I did very, very well, and I had the opportunity to sign with the Nationals. But part of what the Lord was really working in my life is I think He was teaching me a season of patience, because my first year was COVID. That was the first year that minor league baseball happened for me. And I basically, all of minor league baseball was canceled that year. So I'm sitting there at home, right? After going off to college and doing crazy things and having a lot of fun. I had to sit there at home for legitimately like 6, 7, 8 months, just training and just kind of staying diligent. And in those moments, you start questioning, Like, what are we doing? You know, like you start questioning your life, right? And so, I think God's plan for me, it was more than just baseball. And he saw that I needed to grow in specific areas. That's why that happened. And I ended up playing one more year after that. And then I got released. And then it's like, okay, well, I learned some very valuable qualities in that moment of my life of patience, understanding that this is God's plan. And it's very funny looking at it full circle now. I thought I was going to be done with baseball and now I'm playing baseball again, right? And so that's what's really cool about God's timing is that us as humans, we never fully understand it. And I find myself personally questioning it 24/7 all the time. I mean, I could explain to you my entire reality TV journey because it's the craziest thing that I've ever seen in my life. And then you look back and it's like Big Brother is exactly where the Lord wanted me, right? And so that's the same thing with baseball. And so I'm super blessed and I've learned a lot along the way. But I always find myself questioning like, is this what's happening? God, like what's going on? So yeah. But baseball was part of my plan, but it was one of those where I had to give it to the Lord and understand that He's the one in control of everything, and I'm just there along for the ride.
Well, that kinda leads into my next question. Do you see yourself continuing to play baseball with boom ball and, anything else?
Yeah, I mean, look, with Boom Ball, it's the first year, and they're trying to understand what clicks for fans and for everything. And so for me personally, I love the message. Like we're partnered with St. Jude's, and so like the whole purpose of it all is for to put a smile on kids' faces, right? And so what's really cool about Boom Ball is that we're co-ed as well. So we have professional softball players playing with us at the same time. And so I think the story and the message is so sound for us trying to inspire kids. That's what makes me want to stay on longer. Right. And so if I do have that opportunity to continue playing after this year in the future, I mean, goodness gracious, I would love to keep playing and having fun till I'm 40. But, we go back to it's all part of God's plan. If He wants me to continue playing and growing, then by all means, I'm all for it. But if He wants me to hard pivot into something else in life, you just got to trust the process. And so I would love to keep playing baseball. It was my ultimate baby growing up. And so we're just along for the ride right now and we'll see what happens.
What kind of to wrap things up, but what kind of legacy do you hope to leave from your time on the show, now as a baseball player? In other words, like when people hear your name, what words do you hope come to mind?
I really want people to understand it's the mindset of putting yourself in an uncomfortable position to see growth. And what I mean by that is a lot of things that I've done in my life, people have questioned if it's the correct move for me. And so I go back to what we're talking about reality TV. I flew out to Spain to be an alternate for a show called Anonymous. Did not happen. And so next opportunity, I had the opportunity to be on Love Island and Deal or No Deal Island. They pushed me to the final audition. That didn't happen. And then The Bachelorette reaches out. The show gets postponed. And so through every single part of that reality TV journey, I have people that do have my best interests at heart questioning, Zach, is this like the right thing for you? Like you've been at this for over a year. And, that in and of itself is a very uncomfortable question. And you have to trust that with what you're doing in life, God's going to work through you in that moment. So there was a reason why I didn't make it on those 4 shows before I got on Big Brother. Like, I've learned so much in terms of speaking skills, like interview skills, like that type of stuff to where it's like I'm fully prepped to go on the show like Big Brother, right? And so, you don't see that in the moment, but after you take a step back and look at it, it's incredible. And so what I would like what I want my legacy to be, your question is I want to be somebody that's inspiring in terms of, a light in somebody's day, right? But also more than that, it's somebody that just continues to persevere. Like minor league baseball, for example, is another reason. Like I thought I was going to be done after my freshman year of college. If I didn't play my sophomore year, I was going to be done with baseball and that was going to be that. But I really stuck to it and grinded every single day that summer to put myself in a position to then get signed by the Nationals. And so like I feel like my life has always been this thing of like really just putting yourself out there and really giving that extra effort. And I've seen myself grow as a human being so much more in those moments where you do have to take that extra step. And so I highly encourage everybody that is listening to this is that whenever you put yourself in those slightly uncomfortable positions, that's when you see growth. If you're in your consistently same routine and you're not pushing yourself towards some type of goal, you're going to look back in your life and you're going to question like what happened to all those years. That's like what I've been thinking of for the last 6 months, and it's really driven me to go do things like Boomball. Right? It's putting myself out there and continuing to push the envelope, and so that's really what my legacy I want it to be, especially when I get towards the end of my life, is really looking back and being like, did I do enough in my life to inspire other people? And so that's the way I do want to inspire them is through my actions and really trying to push people to be better, just like point blank. So that's ultimately what I want to do. So
In the next 5 years, where do you hope to be?
yeah, I mean, look, I have goals set for myself when it comes to like personal brand and social media and reality TV and all that types of stuff. And yes, you do have those goals in 5 years. Um, but I would say just to generically answer your question, I want to be somebody that is inspiring the youth. Right. And so like that's why I'm so excited with Boomball because that is directly correlated to ultimately what I want to do is to give back, to push those kids learning from my past experiences, my stories to make them better human beings and specifically better athletes as well. And so, like, I think Boomball is giving me that opportunity. And, if I do happen to appear on another reality TV show, I'd love to send that message as well to them, just to keep pushing, just to keep fighting. And so, that's ultimately, that's a very generic answer for your question. Where do I want to be in 5 years? But like, that's the message that I want to make sure is across in 5 years from now. So, yeah,
And that's good. That starts with the mission, and then it kind of trickles down into strategic ways how you can achieve that.
absolutely.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Wrapping things up, one of my last question. I like asking advice questions, but what advice do you have for Gen Z Christians? In this age range, 16 or really any Gen Z or Gen Z Christians who are walking in the world living their lives, but also just walking with God. They're just living their lives, but they're also a Christian.
Look, I'm just going to speak on personal experience. Whenever I feel like I can do it all by myself, that's when I get severely humbled in this world, right? God will, like put me in a season of hoveling or like I have to work through something so that I grow closer in my relationship with him, right? And so when it comes to your daily walk with Christ or you're trying to live your life or whatever, I would highly recommend if you are able to just dive into your Bible even if it is for 5 minutes a day. Because if you're able to put yourself in that mindset, especially early in the morning, then you can live the rest of your life thinking more so about Him. You can see more beautiful things in nature or whatever it may be. I just find myself more centered with Him, which allows me to grow more as a person. So I just highly recommend if you are somebody that is a part of the church or whatever. I think it's more important for you to have that daily devotion by yourself with him alone in a room where you can really just focus on your thoughts and give it all to Christ. Whenever I personally do that, that's when there are more answers in my life. That's where I look back and I'm like, wow, it's crazy to see how God really worked in my life in that specific part. And so I just know that whenever I do my daily devotion and I'm journaling and I'm writing down my thoughts or I'm reading the word, that's when I know I'm the most centered as a human being and that my relationship with him is the most sound. And so that's what I highly recommend for Gen Zers. Instead of like brain rotting on TikTok, take that 5 minutes and just like really look through scripture or your daily devotion or whatever that may be. And you will see the fruits of that later on down in your life. Trust me, like I'm the exact example for that. And so I'm fully blessed for that. So that's what I would highly recommend for Gen Zers specifically.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, that's a good answer. And this is the last question, I swear.
You're good. You're good. We're not even at the 30-minute mark, so we're
That's
fine.
okay. I love asking this last question, but what is a Bible verse that's just been on your heart recently or something that has just carried you through hard times?
Can I give you a story instead of a Bible verse specifically? Because
Sure.
I've been reading so recently, I've never read through the entire Bible, and so, like, that has been something on my mind very recently, and so I'm in the middle of Exodus, right? And so I would just say the story of Moses, where he himself went from a place of very high stature, and then all of a sudden he ends up, killing a man, and he has to go through all these different things. Like, he's afraid of his speech impediment, right? And the God is using him in ways that, if you're thinking about it from a logical standpoint, are insane, are crazy, right? And you're like, if you put yourself in the story of Moses, Moses is sitting there as a guy that's just like, I'm just a normal person that struggles with his speech impediment, and I'm afraid to do these things, But it's cool to see the faith and the trust that he has in God when he has to continuously approach Pharaoh, right? And so when he's continuously approaching Pharaoh to let his people go, that's a serious trust of knowing that, A, God is going to perform that miracle that he said he was going to do for you, and B, realizing that God can use anybody, right? Like Moses, in my opinion, he was just a normal human being that was struggling with something that, a lot of people they really struggle to come back from. But God was still able to use his life for his purpose and to push the way of glorifying him. And so that's really is what has been stuck on my mind, because there's a lot of things that I've screwed up in, right? But it's like, I know that even in those moments, God is still using me, right? And so that's what I highly recommend for people when they look at their life and they're struggling with something, or they're struggling with, whatever it may be. Like, you got to realize that God is still working in you as long as you trust him in that process, and he'll pull you out of whatever you're struggling with.